People always ask how I balance my family life with 400 shows a year. I'm just doing what I love with the people I love. It's my magic life.
I like Wes Iseli. I like everything about him.
All right, guys, we are back. And this week I am super excited. We have lots of magicians on the podcast, but there are some people that come through and they're like, hey, I'd like to be on your podcast. Or I ask him, I don't even remember. But this guy is a world-renowned private investigator. I'm a big Superman fan. You don't know this, sir, but I wish there was somebody out there, and apparently there is. It's you. But I wish there was somebody out there like Superman and Lois, Clark Kent and Lois, actually digging deep, putting their heels in, going after the bad guys. And that is this guy here. World-renowned private investigator, Ed Opperman. What's up, buddy? How are you?
Thank you so much, Wes. Thank you for having me.
Dude, you're my real-life Clark Kent. I love it. Investigating the heavy stuff that people are afraid they'll end up somewhere. So, God bless you. Are you protected? Do you have a gun? Do you have...
I'm protected.
Okay, good. There you go.
I'm protected, yeah.
All right, so first of all, how did you get started in this line of work as a private investigator?
Well, I tell you, how did I get started? Well, I was involved in a few things. And what happened was I was involved in a marijuana business. Okay, let's start with that. And what happened was I had a contact in the phone company. So I had a lawyer. I was like 18, 19 years old. I had a lawyer, and he put me in touch with this private investigator in Brooklyn who worked a lot of organized crime cases. So I had this source in the phone company that if I gave him an unlisted phone number, he could come back with the person's name, their address, sometimes their work phone number, their social security number, their bank account number. It was a gold mine of information back in those days to have that kind of source. Plus, too, you could pay a little extra and you can get a copy of all their phone calls, their long distance phone calls, but also the LUDs, it was called, the local usage, the calls out of the local area. You get a list of all those phone numbers. Ripped right out of the phone company office on a dot matrix printer, you know? So I had that information, and I walked into this PI's office, and this was like the coolest thing in the world. He had all these certificates on his wall, and his little office in Brooklyn, you know, and he had like a shotgun against the wall. He had a shoulder holster, you know, and he was like 55 years old, this little tiny pencil thin mustache, you know. And he did everything back. This guy, remember, this is back in 1979, 1980. And he did handwriting analysis, ballistics, counter surveillance. We used to do all the bug sweeps and stuff like that. So it was a great place to get started. And he was a big shot with all the organized crime cases, all those Giuliani cases back in the 80s in New York City. So we brushed up against all that stuff. So that's how I got started. That's how I got my little start in the world.
All right, so there was a lot there.
Yeah.
All right, so you were doing the illegal because it wasn't legal back then. You were the bad guy selling drugs.
Yeah.
And you got involved, and then you ended up working with this guy.
Well, you got to remember too, his work was criminal defense. Okay, he was working for organized crime, criminal defense. Okay, and my stuff, yeah, I was selling marijuana, you know. And I got involved with the Lower East Side political politics activist groups like the Yippies. Remember the Yippies, Abby Hoffman and Jerry Rubin? Okay, you don't remember as well? I guess I'm a little old here for this crowd. But
I'll look it up.
Yeah, so I got involved with these Lower East Side leftist political organizations. And as a matter of fact, one of the guys was A.J. Weberman, he was friends with John Lennon, and he wrote the book Coup d'etat in America. That was the first JFK assassination book that tied the three tramps to the Watergate burglars. And he wound up getting sued by E. Howard Hunt. And he was also the head of the Jewish Defense Organization, this militant, anti-fascist, anti-Nazi street fighters, you know, real serious guys. And we're still friends to this day. And he was one of my suppliers of marijuana with the Yippies over there. And believe it or not, such a small world, you know, because we're going to be talking about Epstein stuff later on. The lawyer for the Yippies at that time was a fellow named Jerry Lefcourt. who was a lawyer for Abby Hoffman and some of the other yippies. And then later on, today, he was a lawyer for Jeffrey Epstein, one of the defense lawyers for Epstein back in Florida there. And he's the one that authored that 24-page letter where Epstein, in his plea negotiations, claimed that he helped create the Clinton Foundation. So everything old becomes new again.
Wow. All right.
Small world, right?
So your one sheet said that you have been investigating Jeffrey Epstein for how long?
2013.
Okay.
I did the first radio show about Jeffrey Epstein, reporting on Jeffrey Epstein. I couldn't even find a guest. We couldn't even find a guest to talk about it.
So my information of Jeffrey Epstein only comes from TikTok videos, which we said beforehand is all trash.
Yeah.
I know that. It goes in one ear, out the other. For me, it's bubblegum, right? I don't take any of it seriously, and I don't know what to believe, right? So please, let's just dive into Jeffrey Epstein, because we have some other cases that you've been working on as well.
Oh yeah, I've been 45 years, man. You know, and it's no joke. I've been working this stuff a long time. I got involved in a lot of crazy stuff. So what happens is, I was hired. I'm a digital forensic investigator as well, with a focus on cell phone forensics. And I went into cell phone forensics and used it for infidelity investigations was my focus. So I had a website, and this fellow was being stalked by his ex-wife, who was violating a criminal. She was on parole, and it was a parole violation. She was contacting him through his website, and she wasn't allowed to be contacting him. So I put together this little operation where I contacted her on her cell phone and her computer through email, and I captured information about her computer. And then I looked at his website where the information was coming in. I put a little hit tracker on there to capture, they call it like a spider trap, to capture her information going into the website. And then I wrote a report comparing these two bits of data, and it was a perfect fingerprint, and it led right back to this woman. So great, right? You think, oh, happy days, my case is done. I did a great job. Let's move on to the next deal. But oh no, this woman turns out to be totally crazy, man. You got to see the mug shot of this lady, okay, with the orange jumpsuit and her hair's going every different directions. So it turns out she's not going down without a fight. She starts stalking the prosecutor down in Florida and the probation department. Oh yeah, she contacts me telling me she's working for the prosecutor. Okay, and so there was all these kind of parole violation hearings and stuff. And back in those days, 2008, 2007. You had to go in person. You know, they didn't have Zoom meetings like we have today. So I had to fly down there to Palm Beach and attend a hearing and testify against this woman. And they even let her, by the way, when all this was going on and she's stalking me, stalking her ex-husband, acting crazy, they let her leave Florida and travel to Las Vegas. Okay, for what reason? I know, right? You'd think, right? It's crazy what goes on. So I'm down there in Florida, and I pick up this local, one of those weekly magazines, and it talks about this billionaire, this local billionaire who had three little girls coming to his place, his mansion, a day, three little kids, 14-year-old kids, to give him these massages, and he was had sexual contact with them, sexual battery against these young girls, and he got arrested for this, and he got convicted for this, and he only got 18 months, and of those 18 months, he only served about 9 months. And even then, he had work release during the week. So he only did weekends in jail in this sheriff's jail down there in Palm Beach. And even then, he had donated a bunch of money to this sheriff. So he was kept in a private wing that was under construction. So he was the only flying solo in this joint down there, you know. He had more visitors than there were visiting days. He just had visitors coming and going however he wanted. And then he had hired off-duty corrections officers to be, and sheriffs, to escort him when he was allowed to leave to work every day. He set up a little office someplace, and he had them dress in plain clothes and escorted him back and forth. And the guy ran the show, you know, ran the show. So when I heard this story, I says, wow. This is, and no one knew this. Now everybody knows the name. Now everybody knows the story. But back in when I read this thing, I didn't know any of this. So a few years later, when I started doing an internet radio show, okay, I said, boy, this is one. I want to do a show about that guy down there in Florida. So I started looking up, what's the deal in this guy? Let me find some information. And I sort of were some articles about him in UK, in England. The tabloids in England were talking about him and Prince Andrew and stuff like that. But there was really nothing in the United States at all, except that Vicky Ward article. So I said, let me find a guest. Who am I going to interview about this thing? Couldn't find anybody. You Google the name all day long. You couldn't find any information. I wind up interviewing Robert Morrow, okay, who is this political activist, dirty trickster, this Republican, right-wing Republican guy, who at the time was working for Roger Stone. You've heard of Roger Stone, right? Yeah, okay. He was working for Roger. He was Roger Stone's ghostwriter. So he comes on the show and we talk about he explains the whole Jeffrey Epstein story. We did an hour with him, and then I still had a lot of information about Epstein from my own research. So I did an hour solo after that, and that was the first show on Jeffrey Epstein back in 2013. So then, I started getting interviewed about it. I did a lot of interviews back in those days, and it got to the point where if you Googled my name, if you Googled Ed Opperman and you went to Google Images, a picture of Jeffrey Epstein came up, okay? Because we had some YouTube interviews that were like 100,000 hits and stuff like that about this case. So then, a couple of years go by, we're talking about the case. Then it started becoming more popular. People in the United States were talking about it more often. And I get a message, an instant message one night. Yeah, he goes, a friend of mine who's a lawyer, who's another host too, sent me a message. He goes, Ed, check out this lawsuit. It's this woman, Katie Johnson, suing Trump and Epstein. She's a sexual battery. She was battered by Trump and Epstein at 13 years old. And I saw that, and there was a phone number on there. We both called up the number, but the number was disconnected by then. And so, nothing ever became of it. And, we thought nothing of it. We forgot all about it. I guess a short time later, I was contacted by attorney Thomas Mayer, who was a New Jersey attorney who had taken up this case for Katie Johnson. The first lawsuit was like a do-it-yourself pro se lawsuit. So it fell apart due to mostly jurisdictional issues because she was trying to file it in California where the attack took place in New York City. So Thomas Mayer comes on board and put together a real complaint and a real lawsuit with a witness affidavit. And he filed that. You could find it at my Patreon, the Opperman Report Patreon, for free with the witness affidavit. And he needed a private investigator. So he Googled, who knows Jeffrey Epstein and who's the guy? Happens to be a PI, Ed Opperman. Okay, so he hires me. And I come on board. Now, at the time, he had me sign this. My regular retainer has a whole non-disclosure thing in there because I don't want the client talking about, oh, I hired Ed Opperman, blah, blah, blah. Now I start getting phone calls from people all over the world. Who are you going to bill for that time? You know what I mean? It's just a nuisance. So there's all kind of stuff in my retainer agreement about you're not allowed to talk about this. I'm not allowed to talk about this. But this was such a high profile, high stakes operation that he had me sign an additional non-disclosure agreement. I wasn't allowed to talk about this thing at all for years.
Wow.
Wasn't allowed to talk about this thing at all. But here I am every Friday night. I'm doing 3 hours of radio. Back then I did live interviews and then a live show by myself. So I'm doing 3 hours of radio every Friday night. And all of this stuff was on the tip of my tongue. Everyone's talking about Epstein at that point, and I'm really not allowed to, but I'm dropping little hints here and there, you know what I mean? So I was just so frustrated. And then people would want to argue with me about the details about this that I had right, in my hand, you know what I mean? But I couldn't like blast them and say, no, man, this is my job. This is what I'm working on all day long. But I did drop a lot of hints over the years. And it wasn't until the arrest of Epstein and then finally the death of Epstein in 2019 that Thomas Mayer released me from my my non-disclosure and allowed me to talk about it. And that's when I was so nervous that night when I did the Friday Night Live show. And I was so nervous to finally drop that bomb on everybody.
Wow. All right. So doing your own research with that crazy lady and setting up a spider trap. Is that you doing all the tech back end, or do you have an IT guy doing all that?
Oh no, back in those days, that was all me. I invented all that stuff, man. Back in those days, the name of my website, okay, was Email Revealer because I invented a way to locate and identify people from an anonymous email address. And I was the only person doing that back in those days. And then I took that and I created an instant search you could do to trace an email address back to online dating websites and catch people cheating online. And I was back and forth fighting with that. Who was that? The Ashley Madison company,
Oh.
Wow.
Yeah, I was back and forth with them because I would be able to catch people on there, and then they would change their little setup, and I wouldn't be able to catch them anymore. And they would change the commercial and say, "Well, no one can catch you." And then they would hire me under a fake name, and I would catch another person in it. Then they would have to take the ad down, and they could no longer say no one can catch you.
Wow.
Yeah,
All right.
those were the days, man. That was really the wild west of the internet back in those days.
Yeah, I bet.
Well, we used to listen to Howard Stern before the kids were born,
Yeah.
and I mean that commercial ran
All the time.
every commercial break had an Ashley Madison commercial.
Yeah.
And we're looking at each other like, wow. I mean, it's just right there. All right. So,
Well, wait, I gotta interrupt you, bro. I did a couple of jobs for Howard Stern.
are you allowed to say?
Yeah, it was in the papers. Let's see, what was the first one? The first one was Gary Dell'Abate. What happened? Remember when Gary Dell'Abate was running for the Greenwich
Like a local mayor.
Parks Department?
Parks,
No,
right.
Parks and Recreation. It was something about the sports fields and stuff like that. And he wanted to get on that board, right? Some crap, it pays nothing, you know what I mean? You're trying to do a good deed. And some crazy woman, some crazy person in the town created a fake email and wrote all these horrible things about him. So I was the email. I was the email guy back in those days, man. I'm not now, but back in those days, no one could touch me as far as what I was doing with emails.
I remember Howard giving him a hard time about it because he's like,
Right.
why are you going through all this work? It's just a stupid Parks and Rec. And I remember him like he's getting beat up over this. Yeah, man, I remember this happened.
Great. Then you'll know. Okay, because this will all be familiar to you. So I took the email. I was able to figure out that the email was created right before it was sent, like minutes before the first email was sent with this horrible content in it. And I traced it back to the library where it was sent from. So they were able to use that to discredit the email writer and prove that it wasn't, and these allegations weren't accurate about Gary, that it was just some crackpot. The second job was with Jared. Remember Jared, the handsome guy, Jared? Okay, and he was on that dating site, Plenty of Fish. Okay, so I contacted and I says, hey, I can, I'm Plenty of Fish. I'm the dating site guy. I can catch people on dating sites. So I had a whole plan to set up and catch who was impersonating Jared on Plenty of Fish, but Steve Langford went on the air and talked about it and blew my cover. And Steve Langford was such a character too, man, because he would call me up and he's talking to me. And I says, well, I haven't done anything yet, Steve. There's really nothing to talk about yet. Fascinating.
He's just trying to get content. He is trying hard to get content.
Yeah. And so I'm in that, in the Howard 100, I'm on the screenshot there. I'll send it to you. And wouldn't you know it, the same day that this is all going on, there was a lot of stuff going on. If you remember the whole Tiger Woods beauty pageant on Howard Stern. Yeah, that's my deal too. I did all the cell phones for Gina Rodriguez and the Tiger Woods mistresses.
Wow.
Okay,
wow.
yeah.
No, we were listening back then. Absolutely. Wow.
Yeah. I know, but it's funny too because when I was working on Gary's deal, Gina was over there. They were having that beauty pageant, and I was thinking in the back of my head, you know what? I can probably get a favor here and fix this pageant, for my friend Gina, but I didn't try. But what was funny though is when I was doing one of those deals, it was either for Gary or it was the other one with Steve Langford. But it was that day that I'm in that Howard 100 screenshot. Who's the guest? Charlie Sheen. And I was the PI in the lawsuit against Charlie Sheen too. Remember when Charlie Sheen attacked? See, it all fits together. It's all like a big one thing after another.
This is
Yeah.
It is, right? Yeah. Imagine living through all this stuff. But what happened with Charlie Sheen was, remember when he attacked that girl, Capri Anderson, at the Plaza Hotel in New York?
No, I remember the whole blow up after the 3.5 men and
Trashing a hotel room or something.
trashing a hotel. She said she remembers. Yeah, there's so many Charlie Sheen scandals. I can't remember them all.
But this is what started the whole thing. This is what got that whole year of winning and all that crazy, chicken dinner, all that stuff. That's what got that whole year started. Is he attacked this? He had a date arranged with this porn star, Capri Anderson, and later, and because he's not allowed to see his own kids alone. Okay, he has to have supervision with his own kids. So anyway, so the way he was meeting Denise Richards in New York, and he had a date with this porn star, Capri Anderson, who's a tiny little girl. She's tiny, man. Um, I got the story on TikTok. I tell the whole story a couple of times. And they were up in the room up there, and something happened. He started accusing her of stealing his watch.
I do remember this now. I do remember.
Because, he was all, wasted.
Yeah.
But the thing is, he's out on bail for his attack on Brooke Mueller with a knife on Thanksgiving. Okay, than anybody else, any other. If this was Wes over here, man, we'd be under the jail. Okay, but Charlie Sheen's allowed to just do whatever he wants, and so he's on probation, violent domestic violence case. And when the cops show up at that hotel, because she was locked in the bathroom, he was trying to get into the bathroom. She's calling for help, and when the cops show up, he's naked and covered in blood head to toe because he had broken mirrors and lamps and tables and stuff like that, all this broken glass all over the room. And again, if this was you or me, we'd be maced and tased and,
100%.
back of the squad car. But not Charlie Sheen, no. So that's what kicked off that whole thing.
Wow. Yeah, that whole year was crazy for him. And then it's like, he was everywhere. He was everywhere during that period. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was 20. I've been involved in a lot of 24/7 news stories. Even Zimmerman too. I was involved in George Zimmerman too, and Tiger Woods and George Zimmerman, Charlie Sheen. But Sheen recently, because now he has this Netflix deal, right? I haven't seen it yet. In fact, I could see it if I wanted to. But he has this new Netflix special coming out where he's telling the real story, and he makes this claim about how he couldn't talk about his bisexuality. He started sleeping with men because of his crack cocaine, and then he started having sex with men. That's what he says. And he says, I couldn't talk about this because of the extortion. I was being extorted. Okay. Well, what he's talking about is, once again, Gina Rodriguez and an attorney. Charlie Sheen was exposing gay male escorts to AIDS. He has AIDS, and he was exposing them to AIDS. So he was sued over this, and he had to pay a settlement over this. Now, maybe he paid a little bit more to keep it quiet about the AIDS and the gay sex, but it wasn't extortion. This was a perfectly legitimate settlement. Now, he also refers to his child support as extortion.
Oh.
He really does, man. He when he comes up with his figure of extortion, he's including his child support because he thinks that, well, I wouldn't have had to pay as much child support if I wasn't keeping this secret. If Denise Richards wouldn't have blown my story. But he's not. We laugh about him, but he's not a good guy. He's not a nice guy. He's not a decent guy. There's a lot of allegations about him, naked and covered in blood, attacking this little girl. He's not a good guy.
All right. So, do you know anything about the Corey Haim? I'm a big fan of the two Coreys. I grew up. My dad had a video store. Watched all the movies.
Yeah.
Him supposed to raping a young Corey Haim who was like 12 at the time.
Goodness.
That was who got him. Yeah. Do you know
in the movie
about
Lucas?
That?
Yes, I do. I'm involved in that too. Okay, I'm involved in that too.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so am I. And you can look up that story, that radio show. The one that, when I had enough of that, is I call it the Corey Story Circus. Okay, I'm dealing with that whole bunch because there's not. By the way, too, in that whole bunch too, there's not a nice guy in that bunch either. Okay, Feldman, Haim, and all that bunch. And Sheen. The first radio report I did on that was called "Let's Look at the Clues." Corey Feldman, Corey Haim. Let's look at the clues, and I concluded just by doing research, nothing on the inside, no inside knowledge, right, that it was Charlie Sheen.
Wow.
When I did, just by looking at the clues from Feldman's book and public statements. So when Feldman sees that, he retweets it, okay, when he sees that show. But then I started interviewing those women, those Corey's angels, and their experience with Corey, okay, and which was not a good experience. And these are all nice women, and had a horrible experience with him. So when Corey Feldman sees that, now he hates Ed Opperman, and he blocks me on Twitter. So then he wants to come out. Then I started dealing with the Corey Haim's mother, Jude Haim. And that was an interesting experience too. Now, from my experience of dealing with all those people, because a big part of my job, people say, well, what does a PI do? A big part of what I do, I'm a paralegal also too as well. I went to college for paralegal work, not for PI work. But I put together lawsuits. That's where the money is in lawsuits. You find a plaintiff and you hook them up with the correct attorney, and then you negotiate your position in that lawsuit, your fees in that lawsuit. So I was trying to put together a lawsuit for Jude or these Feldman women, these angels and stuff like that. But it was very bizarre because they always had to go back and talk to someone else and then come back to me. They had to get approval from someone else and then come back. Okay, we had to go talk to someone else and then come back. So I concluded that they had received settlements already in this whole Feldman, Haim situation, Sheen situation.
I just figured it was NDA 12 pages thick from him. That's why they were checking with him or something. Yeah.
Yeah, an NDA based on a settlement that they had gotten some money already. Okay, and they weren't interested in going after more money because they'd already gotten that settlement. They had already been to that well and drank well from it. Okay, so but then to add insult to injury of all this, Mr. Feldman has a representative contact me later on when he plans to do his film there, his $20 per view pay-per-view screening there of his when he's going to out Mr. Sheen, right? he's gonna rock Hollywood by outing Mr. Sheen. And so now he still doesn't unblock me, but he has a representative, a volunteer representative too, by the way, that he doesn't pay. He has this woman contacting his representative and say, Ed, we want to use some clips from your reporting and from your interviews with Jude and these other women, and we want to use your clips. But we don't want to pay you for it. And we want you to find it for us. Go through all your stuff and find it, deliver it to us, and then Corey's going to sell it. Okay? I think like that, Ed.
Wow.
I said, no, thanks.
Yeah, right?
Well, wasn't that a whole flop anyway? Like the stream went down. He couldn't get it to work.
That's what I understand. And something happened where there was technical difficulties, but I understand it has played though. It has played somewhere. Some people have told me that he did play a clip of me, and some people tell me he hasn't. So I don't even know what happened. And of course, no one gets back to me. I ran into him once in Vegas too with a couple of his angels, but my daughter wouldn't let me go over and talk to him.
I don't blame her. All right. So I don't even know where to go here. All right. So let's go back to. I didn't know we were going to get to the two Coreys. I'm so excited. This is awesome. I've watched every documentary. I go down that rabbit hole hard. It's just because I grew up with them. I love their little movies, and I want to know more about them. But it's a crazy roller coaster. They're crazy. They're drug addicts. They're crazy. But they had it all. They had Hollywood. They could have been. Who's the pirate? What's that guy's name? Jack Sparrow.
Johnny Depp.
They could have been the next Johnny Depp. Both of them. I mean,
Want to hear a Johnny Depp story?
Oh, you got a Johnny Depp story. Golly. Ed, we have to have 4 parts with you, man. Go.
I know, right?
Okay. Do you know who Paul Baresi is?
I don't.
Paul Baresi is a notorious, infamous Hollywood private investigator, Hollywood fixer, Hollywood bagman. Okay, that's what they call Paul Baresi. He was a private investigator, very respected, and I respect him. I have no other choice, but I respect him. And what do you call it? He is also a gay film star and gay film producer. And he had a little tete-a-tete with Mr. John Travolta. Okay, he had a little affair with Mr. John Travolta. He also had some kind of relationship with Paul Lynde from Hollywood Squares. And interesting.
That's 2 different type of men.
Well, no, they're 2 different types, but both allegedly,
Right.
Yeah.
No, but I'm saying one is flamboyant and one is
right
closeted. Right.
But what I understand is Travolta too, as well, in private, is rather flamboyant.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So what happened was I invite Baresi to come on my radio show because I had a couple other guys that were mutual friends and stuff like that, PIs and stuff like that, and Hollywood stuff and fixer types. And he comes on, and he's trying to tell me about that he's working for Amber Heard in the lawsuit of Amber Heard against Johnny Depp. But I really wasn't interested, you know, 'cause it wasn't in the news 24 hours. It wasn't on TikTok every 10 seconds. It wasn't that media, a big push, you know, on the news every night. So I wasn't interested. Plus, Baresi was involved in so many with Anthony Pellicano and Michael Jackson. He was involved in so much stuff. I didn't care about Amber Heard or Johnny Depp. Who cared? But it turns out that Johnny Depp's lawyer listened to the interview. And what he did was he goes into the tabloids. No, it wasn't a tabloid. It was like Variety or Hollywood Backstage. It was a legitimate Hollywood publication. And he starts baiting Paul Baresi, calling him, you know, a fool. And Baresi likes to quote Shakespeare and things when he talks. He's a fascinating guy on many, many levels. So Baresi takes the bait and he calls up to confront Mr. Depp's attorney, right? And somehow in all of that, Baresi changes ships in midstream and leaves the Heard the plaintiff and goes to work for the Depp defense, okay, which is very unusual. Okay. Mr. Baresi, too, is the PI and the Hollywood fixer. If you remember that story about who's that guy, that comedian, Eddie Murphy, where Eddie Murphy had those transvestites, okay? Well, what happened was it was Baresi's job, and publicly he admits this, that he was the one who wrangled all those transvestites and got them to sign NDAs and take money to fail polygraphs. Basically,
Wow.
okay. And one of those transvestites wounds up falling off the roof or falling out a window, okay? And a lot of people have speculated over the years that perhaps Baresi was nearby when that happened. I live on the first floor, by the way, okay? So I fear not.
That's another safety precaution for you. Yes,
Right.
sir.
Yeah, because if you go back and look in history, Mr. Paul Lynde or Paul Lynde's boyfriend, I forget which one, also fell out a window. So there's a lot of windows, okay, in this situation. So it's kind of funny because during all this, Baresi had sent me the PI report on Depp. I saw all the dirt on Depp. Plus, I had my own witness that has dirt on Depp that I shared with Baresi. And he comes back to me and he says, "Oh, Ed, I want to come back." And he did a story in the tabloids about how he was hired by Amber Heard to dig up dirt on Depp, but he couldn't find any. Everywhere he looked, he couldn't find a bad word about Depp. Everyone said he was such a great guy. Yeah, you know, so he couldn't. And I said, "But Paul, you sent me the report." So we talked about this. He goes, "Well, you must be mistaken." Okay, I'm mistaken. Okay.
My goodness.
When he switches, he commits.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Although he wants to come back on now. I was in the middle of a hurricane. He wants to come on the show. I said, "Paul, I'm in a hurricane." Okay. I can't talk. I can't talk right now, Paul. I gotta go buy an umbrella. There's a video, Law and Crime interview of Paul Baresi, a recent one, Law and Crime, where he's talking about his experience with the Depp stuff and like that. And he starts in the beginning, he starts talking about how he researched Mr. Depp and his background and his history, and he found it very illuminating. He was illuminated by his background, and like the Illuminati, okay,
Oh.
which is the type of information I had sent to him. Okay, the witness I had. Well, he's illuminated over and over, basically hinting around, Mr. Mr. Depp, I'd like to keep my mouth shut if I'm persuaded.
Wow.
Wow.
That's my Johnny Depp story. How's that?
Yeah.
That is crazy, man.
Yeah.
You
no
just,
kidding.
I thought we were talking about Jeffrey Epstein. It's gone
Oh, yeah,
everywhere.
It's gone everywhere.
No,
yeah.
they're all connected, man. They're all connected.
That's crazy. That's
It
crazy.
is.
They're all
So,
connected.
so here's my question. I could never be on a jury. I've said this a million times because people can pull strings and create stuff. And with AI nowadays, you get sound, you got voice, you got video, you got pictures. I don't trust anything I see, hear, whatever, unless it comes out of my wife. I take it with a grain of salt. But is he dead?
Epstein?
Yeah.
You're a magician, right?
That's why I'm saying, yeah.
Right. And they have something called what is it? The magician's choice or the magician's deception, where you're given two choices. Did he kill himself or was he murdered?
Or is he
Killed?
even dead? Did they just walk?
They don't give you that choice, do they?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and that's what I would suspect too, that he was walked out of there. He had the connections, he had the juice. I've been in that jail, by the way, MCC. I've been in that jail. It's a very, very, because when we were working on those organized crime cases back in New York in the 80s, very corrupt jail. It's one of the most corrupt jails we've ever dealt with.
Oh, wow.
Epstein had contraband in his cell. He had extra blankets, he had extra jumpsuits, he had all kind of stuff. So it's very possible with the people he was involved with, Dershowitz, Barr, and the guys he knew, Giuliani. You know that Rudy Giuliani was Jeffrey Epstein's lawyer at Tower Financial? Did you know that? Nobody
No.
knows that. I know that because I interviewed the guy who ran Tower Financial, Stephen Hoffenberg, who wrote the check out to Giuliani. So that's exclusive to my show, and you won't hear it repeated anywhere. You hardly hear Tower Financial talked about anywhere, which was New York City's second largest Ponzi scheme after Bernie Madoff, and was run by a guy named Stephen Hoffenberg. Jeffrey Epstein, who was referred to Hoffenberg through a guy named Douglas Lease, who was a notorious arms dealer, did the biggest arms deal in history. Okay. And it just came out with this release of these birthday party letters this week that his son, I forget his first name, but his son Lease is one of those letters and is friends with Epstein. And he's denied any connection with Epstein all these years and denied that his father, Douglas Lease, is the one who introduced Epstein to Hoffenberg. So now we pretty much have that confirmed. But what happened with Hoffenberg and Epstein was they had Rudy Giuliani was their corporate counsel for $1 million a year, SDNY, former SDNY. And they're running a Ponzi scheme. But so you hire former SDNY to kind of keep you out of trouble. Okay, they're going to tip you off if there's a problem, and they're going to run interference for you if there's a problem. It's worth $1 million when you're stealing 400 million. Okay, and there's a couple other characters involved. This named Darren Endyke and Richard Kahn, who today run Jeffrey Epstein's estate. Okay, so it was Jeffrey Epstein, Rudy Giuliani, Stephen Hoffenberg, Endyke and Kahn, and they're sitting there on $400 million of stolen money. The stuff hits the fan, okay? Mr. Hoffenberg winds up going to prison for 18 years, holding the bag, okay? But it's an empty bag because the 400 million disappears too, okay? Endyke, Kahn, Epstein take off down to Virgin Islands. They create the Southern Trust, which mysteriously, I mean, magician here, you tell me, appears, Mr. The great Iseli. Okay, appears $400 million in the coffers down there in the Virgin Islands. Oh my goodness, what could have happened? Where did the money come from? We can't figure it out. It's a mystery, right?
Yeah.
So I forget where we're going with all this, but yeah. So Hoffenberg, he's the one that when he gets out of prison, he's the one. He was happening to be friends with the governor down there in the Virgin Islands. He got all that litigation opened up in the Virgin Islands to go after Jeffrey Epstein. He got me a job down in the Virgin Islands working for the prosecutors down there. So it was Hoffenberg, the unsung hero, who, believe it or not, was a con man, reformed con man, in my opinion. He's passed away today. He's dead now. But there's an article about him just came out in National Enquirer just today, as a matter of fact, that mentions Hoffenberg. And they claim, and I know the reporter, they're claiming that Hoffenberg told them stuff about Epstein and tapes and stuff like that, and that he swore them not to talk about this until 3 years after his death. I find that hard to believe. Me and Stephen Hoffenberg were very close, you know. He looked at me like a son, you know. He's my father's age when he died. And, you know, he trusted me. I know that. I trusted him, although I believe he had some kind of intelligence connections too. And they're saying that I don't really believe that quote that he said that, to be honest with you. But it's in the National Enquirer right now.
Wow. For the audio listeners, anytime you lean back, the volume goes way down.
Oh,
So
I'm sorry.
No, just for the audio listeners, they're turning the radio up and down.
Yeah.
So I got questions for you. So you said that there is a third option. They could have just walked him out. If he had all these connections, do you think that's a 2% chance? Do you think that's a 30% chance?
Well, we could fix it. We could make it a 0% chance in a minute, because there's an autopsy report, and in any autopsy report, there should be a photograph of Mr. Epstein's chest cracked wide open, with his face in the picture. We haven't seen that picture, and the picture exists. The only people that have seen that picture are Epstein's brother, who's up to all this stuff, up to his neck in all this stuff. Had corporations, shell corporations, and property under his name. Money was transferred to him right before the supposed exit of Jeffrey Epstein. 2 days before, the money's going to Mr. Mark, I think his name, Epstein.
So you are the professional finding details in places and setting up spiders and all that on the internet for emails. Is there metadata in photos that you know how to look at? Like,
I don't know how to do that, but yeah, but I'm sure.
How do you know that's not a CGI photo of him laying on the table?
That? Yeah, that's a good question. Nowadays, yeah, you're right. I'm an old guy. Yeah, nowadays it could be. Yeah, right. Yeah.
I don't trust anything. I don't know.
Nowadays, yeah.
Do you think he had CIA connections? Do you think he was setting people up for blackmail, or do you think he was just a sicko?
I think the blackmail stuff is highly overrated. This blackmail stuff, especially now when you see like Leon Black. I was just talking about it today. Leon Black sends him this letter, and he ends it love and kisses. Leon Black is pretty much the only one who you can legitimately say that there's evidence of blackmail. I forget the name of his company, but he was sued by his own stockholders because he gave all this money to Epstein. I think it was $170 million total. And his claim it was for to avoid taxes. How much taxes could there be? But
Wow.
But I've dealt with a lot of blackmail people. I've been accused of blackmail. I mean, Paul Baresi seems to be doing blackmail. I don't know. I've been around a bunch of blackmailers, and okay, Paul's gonna kill me if he sees this. But what do you call it? I swear to God, I gotta move to the basement. First floor ain't safe enough, man. Oh God.
All right,
By the way,
so
on that law and crime interview, the first thing he says is, they said, well, Paul Baresi, tell us about yourself. He goes, well, first of all, I'm not a murderer. I didn't kill Paul Lynn.
yeah, go ahead, because
That's how you start. Wow.
That's how he starts. That's how I always says, I'm going to start an interview like that one day. Well, first of all, I'm not a murderer.
Yeah. Woo.
the fact that you have to start a podcast like that says something.
Right.
I'm not going to say what it says, but it says something.
Yeah.
So another thing I've seen on TikTok or somewhere, some conspiracy podcast, Epstein had a submarine and there was tunnels in that place down there. Have you heard anything about that?
The thing is too, it's not just the podcast. It's some people that are considered respected people in this story are just, I'm allowed to curse, they're just full of shit.
Okay.
Yeah. And people that should know better. Okay, people that should know better and people that do know better perpetuate all this crap, this hysteria, because that's the story people want, and they're just the tail is guiding the horse. You know what I mean? It's the wagon's guiding the horse.
It's new news, whether it's wrong or not. It's new news, and that's what gets shared. That's what gets people commenting, and that supports the algorithm.
Yeah.
I told my wife, I don't trust anything I see. Ghislaine Maxwell, I don't know how you say her name. They're showing her jogging, but I said, honey, she could have just came home, logged into that place, had the paparazzi take some pictures, and went back home. I don't know that she's actually there 24 hours a day. I don't trust any of it.
Yeah, Bureau of Prisons is probably more corrupt than anything, man. It's one of the most corrupt joints you can have. But the tunnels, no tunnels. There are no tunnels.
Okay.
There's no tunnels between P. Diddy and the Playboy Mansion. I was involved in litigation with the Playboy Mansion. That question was in a deposition. There's no tunnels.
I heard that one too.
It was an April Fool's joke, okay? It came out on April Fool's Day, the tunnels of Playboy Mansion. No tunnels to P. Diddy's house. I got some P. Diddy stuff for you, though. There's no tunnels on Little St. James. There's no submarines. The mouth, there's a wooden dock. We're at Little St. James, okay, with Epstein's Island.
Right? So have you been there?
No, I've not been there, no.
Well, I'm not saying as party time.
No. All my work was done in the United States over the phone with the people in the Virgin Islands. I've never traveled down to Virgin Islands, and especially not to that island. But it's one 6-bedroom house, okay, and that's the temple thing, right? Now, there's pictures. James O'Keefe came out with some pictures. I don't know James O'Keefe if I trust him or not, but I was told that was a shed, a dusty shed that was used for storing gym equipment. Okay, now there's all kinds of fancy stuff painted inside, but the outside, though, those doors are fake and stuff like that. I know that. The house is only 6 bedrooms. It's not this big giant thing where you could have parties of hundreds of celebrities and and every politician, the whole Congress in there. And then there's 3 guest cottages. It's not a big property, and there's no airport on there. There's a telepad, but even the little roads, you have to drive a golf cart to get around there. The dock where they would dock boats on that island is a little tiny wooden dock. There's no Disney cruises docking in that on that island. It would rip that dock even like a 40-foot yacht. You couldn't park there. But to top it off, the dock is 30 feet deep, but the mouth to get into the island is only 8 feet deep. You can't have any big boats going to that island. So that kind of stuff is just so frustrating. And you hear these stories. Oh, there was a fire on the island. All the evidence was destroyed. That's crap too, man. This is over and over. But there's a website that says it, so it must be true. But there's just so much crap out there, man. It's frustrating.
Well, that's all I knew. That's all I can keep up with the Jeffrey Epstein thing. So where can people find out more of your research and your stuff about Jeffrey Epstein?
Well, if you go to my Patreon, okay, the Opperman Report Patreon. Now, even if you don't sign up and if you can't scrape up that 10 cents a day to get the paid content, there's all kinds of free stuff on there. That 24-page letter I told you about where Epstein claimed that he helped create the Clinton Foundation. Okay, that's up there for free. Now, when I first obtained that letter, I had that exclusively, and I had it for sale on my first website for $1.99. Okay. And then when he was dead, finally, my phone started ringing off the hook after everybody was involved in this. All Business Insider and Forbes and stuff like that. All those email addresses were going to my website, buying it for $1.99. Yeah. So anywhere you saw it after that, they got it from me. I got some great stuff there. I got exclusively Maria Farmer filed a claim against the FBI. Okay. And a prelude to a lawsuit. Now she has a lawsuit as well. But Maria Farmer and Sarah Ransom filed this claim against the FBI because Maria Farmer had reported Epstein to NYPD and FBI back in 1996, and they did nothing. They did nothing about it. Okay, and they just let just think of all the crimes that have happened since 1996. 3 little kids a day down in Palm Beach, Florida, come from the Royal Palms High School. 3 little kids, and if I have the 2006 grand jury transcripts, okay, from the first that created the original indictment of Jeffrey Epstein, which is so important to read. If anybody really wants to understand this case, there's that, and there's a couple of YouTube videos of these young girls who at the time when they were interviewed were young still. They were 16, 18 years old. They were little kids. And they describe how they were recruited to not to the island, not to the plane, not to all this stuff, but to his house 1 mile away from Mar-a-Lago, by the way, okay, from Royal Palms High School. And if you read that 2006 grand jury transcript, you'll hear one of the chief detectives who prosecuted this case. He says there was no one at Royal Palms High School that was unaware of what was going on. Okay. Everyone knew. Epstein, when they executed the search warrant on his mansion in Florida, he had transcripts, school transcripts from Royal Palms High School. I want to know all this crap about the island and the airplanes and the list. Why don't we have a list of who at the Royal Palms High School knew about this crap and allowed this to go on? Not a peep about it. Have you heard the word Royal Palms High School before today? No. All these kids too, they live down at the trailer park down by the Royal Palms High School. They come from that trailer park. If you read this grand jury transcript, everyone knew. The first little girl, the one that got this whole thing started, she went over there. She got $300. She went to school the next day. She still had the $300 in her hand, a little purse, a little 15-year-old kid, And one of the other girls is calling, "Oh, you're a slut. You went to that sugar daddy's house because they all knew, and so they get into a fist fight, and the cops come. And I says, "Do you have $300 on you about this?" Because they heard the story, and she goes, "Yeah, I got the 300." And that's what got this whole thing started, And then even then, if you read the probable cause affidavit too, well, no, again, that got this whole thing started about the cops visiting all the homes of these little girls around dinner time, knocking on the door, surprising the family, you know. What? My daughter? What? Massages? What are you talking about? I went, what? And the kids would deny it. But then the families would come back the next day or a week later and says, "Okay, we have to talk. We got it out of her. She admitted what happened." Can you imagine? You got a 13-year-old kid.
Yeah, no, I can't imagine.
Ask your kid if this was going on in her school. Would everybody know? Everybody would know.
Well, she's homeschooled. Everybody would know.
Oh, everybody would know. Everybody would know. Yeah, God bless you, man. I wish I had done that myself. I was tempted to do that. But also, too, with this 2006 grand jury transcript, you will hear the prosecutor in this case, by the way, who comes out of Pam Bondi's office, too. Okay, Pam Bondi was the state attorney general at that time. You'll hear trying to throw the case. She was trying to throw this. And when one of the detectives is describing one of the young ladies, and she starts talking about how, well, didn't she have prom? She was running away. Didn't she show up to school one day on drugs? And what does she do now? Well, she's a dancer. A stripper? Okay, that's the prosecutor trashing her own witnesses. And if it weren't for some of these kindly old grand jurors, I don't know if they're old or not, but you could just tell these men and women on this grand jury who took over the questioning. Now, I had to testify before a grand jury once. It's no piece of cake. And the questions were asking me were very hard. But in this case, they were so gentle with these young girls, and they were giving them fatherly advice. Don't blame yourself. This wasn't your fault. You don't need to be ashamed of this. And don't you want to receive justice and follow through with this and testify against this man and get justice? If not for that, this DA would have threw this case, man. And there would be nothing.
So back to my question earlier. I don't know if you answered it. Does he have CIA connections? How deep does this go?
Well, we know about the arms dealing through Douglas Lease. We know his State Department connections because he rented a building. He had a sweetheart deal renting a building from the State Department and then subletting out to a New York organized crime attorney. It was a building that was seized from Iran in Iran sanctions. So we know he had State Department connections. We know he had Douglas Lease, who's MI6. We know he had those connections. We know he had connections with Adnan Khashoggi, who had CIA and Israeli Mossad connections. We know he had connections with Robert Maxwell, who was Ghislaine Maxwell's father, who was Mossad. We had Mossad blackmail operation going on. And a fellow named Ari Ben Menashe, who is former Mossad. Claims that Epstein was Mossad. Now, Ben Menashe, we have many mutual friends. I've never spoken to Ben Menashe myself. He's supposedly a nice guy. He supposedly killed a mutual friend of ours. Okay, there's another thing there. But there's other things too. Like he claimed there was an arson at his house. It's a suspicious arson. We've been talking about Ben Menashe for years. He claims that Epstein was Mossad. Pretty much after that, that's it. Now, I have my own little connection. I interviewed a woman named Conchita Sarnoff, who wrote a book called Traffic King with a capital K, about Jeffrey Epstein. And I contacted her about coming on my show. She was a member of Mar-a-Lago. She's friends with Trump. She's friends with Ghislaine. She was friends with Epstein. She's friends with this whole crowd. They're all friends, by the way. All the people talking about this thing you see on the news, Michael Wolff and Steve Bannon and all this bunch, they're all friends. James Patterson, who came up with that crazy story about the Epstein getting kicked out of Mar-a-Lago because he was hitting on a teen girl. He's a member of Mar-a-Lago. He's friends with all these people. And he also says Clinton is innocent too. So if you want to believe Clinton's innocent, then Epstein's innocent too. So I book finally Conchita Sarnoff. I contact her directly. She agrees to come on the show. I get a phone call. Mr. Opperman, I want to talk to you about my client, Conchita Sarnoff. I am Victor Ostrovsky, former Mossad. I am her publisher. Her publisher, she's writing a book about Epstein, and her publisher calls me up to kind of, put me in my place, I guess. to tell me, and his book that he wrote is about using deception, how the Mossad uses deception to get their way. And his publishing company is something called, should write this down one day because I say it so often. His publishing company is called something like The Cover Story or The Official Story. You know what I mean? That's the name of his publishing company.
Wow.
I know. And then it turns out the Sarnoff too. She's the one that was kind of doing PR for Acosta. She's the one that all these catchphrases like Epstein, Lolita Island, and Lolita Express. She's the one that perpetrated and promoted all those little catchphrases, you know, which are all those viral expressions. Epstein didn't kill himself. That's all controlled by these people that control the story. Okay. But Conchita Sarnoff also turns out friends with Vicky Ward too. You know, the one who wrote that about Trump with the speakerphone. Me and Epstein are friends for 15 years. He likes his social life. He likes the young girls. Ha ha ha. Vicky Ward is friends with all these people, members of Mar-a-Lago. They're all friends, man. But Conchita Sarnoff, who wrote this book exposing Mr. Epstein, also has the same law firm as Mr. Epstein, Kirkland Ellis. She has the same law firm as him, and she runs this organization to raise awareness for young women who are being trafficked, and that throws a lot of parties and stuff like that to raise money. But what do you call it? She's doing good work. But her law firm is Kirkland Ellis, is the same law firm as Jeffrey Epstein had with Ken Starr and Dershowitz and all these characters. And who else worked at Kirkland Ellis? You're not going to hear this either, man, everywhere you look. Bill Barr, Attorney General, when Epstein died, worked for Kirkland Ellis before they represented Epstein and after they represented Epstein. Just as bad as Acosta, but it's a free ride on all this, man. No, this is a word. Another one, too, is that guy, Steve Mnuchin, the former secretary, Treasury Secretary. His name shows up on the registered agent on the corporation paperwork of Jean-Luc Brunel, who was a modeling scout, modeling owner who died also in prison in France. In his situation, he was buddies with Epstein. Brunel visited Epstein in jail more days than there were visiting days. So in one day he visited him twice or slept over. Who knows what? Okay. I know. Look at you shaking your head, man. Right? You can't make it up. Steve Mnuchin, I have a witness, Heather Braden, who saw Steve Mnuchin hanging out down there. She was a model, former model. She met Epstein. She knew Trump. She was at that party where Epstein and Trump held at the centerfold party with just the two of them and 50 women, you know, and some celebrity too. I never got the name of him. So there's a lot of people involved in all this.
Daggone it.
Yep.
Daggone it. So when I book a guest, I say I just want them to be passionate about it. I don't want to ask a question and then say yes or no. You hit all the bells and whistles, man. Golly. I'm going to have to listen to this 4 times and write all these names down.
Oh, yeah, an hour went by. That's fast, man. Sorry. Yeah.
No, but it's so much.
I know,
man. So are we ever going to find an answer? Are we ever going to figure it out?
Nah, too late. It'll never happen. It's just like the JFK assassination. They throw so many monkey wrenches in there. They control this story. They control it. Real quick. When I say to you, do you know who Jeffrey Epstein's last cellmate was?
A cop that was a bodybuilder.
Bingo. No, it wasn't.
Okay. All right.
But if you take your Googling fingers and Google all day long, who is Jeffrey Epstein's last cellmate, you will come up with that Tagliati, the cop, the bodybuilder, right? He was at one time, he was a cellmate, but the last cellmate number 3, was a fellow named Efron Stone Reyes. And he was Jeffrey Epstein's last. He was a snitching out his buddies in his drug business. And he was Jones and heroin withdrawals. And the story is when he went in there, and it's in the report. He's cellmate number 3. This isn't me making this up. If you look up Efron Stone Reyes, you'll find the story. But if you look the other way, you only find this other guy, Tagliati, because they control this story. Efron Stone Reyes was removed from that cell because they had to take him to court the night before. So I guess they had him sleeping over in the car out in front of the courthouse. So I don't know, because the court's right by that jail. You don't need to move anybody overnight. Okay, I'm very familiar with that jail. By the way,
It took
H.A.
a while.
Weberman and Hoffenberg were both in that jail too, as well. But that's inmates.
He really had to take his time putting a suit on, is what it was.
Right, right. But the story goes, and this I can't confirm, but this is an official story, is that Efron Stone Reyes was jonesing on heroin, and Epstein was able to pay off and get Suboxone smuggled in there for him. And Epstein was putting money on his books too as well. Mr. Reyes was released early on that COVID release deal, right? And he's dead now too. He's dead. He's dead of COVID. Okay, the last cellmate of Jeffrey Epstein's dead. Okay, we know he's dead. He's not in the wind. And he had a daughter or a niece, I forget who, was talking to reporters, and now she stopped talking too. She won't want to talk either. That's you. So tell me if you look at the real story.
Wow. No, and dag on it. I want a bow on it, and I don't want any loose ends. Yeah.
It's not like it's gonna happen, honey.
All right, so speed round, because we're running out of time, and we're definitely gonna have you back on. You are amazing. Thank you. This is awesome.
We've only scratched the surface here, I feel like.
No, I think I told everything, but go ahead.
No, I don't think so. New York Madam, the lady that went on the Today Show that had all that stuff, and that's when I originally said, I need Clark Kent and Lois Lane on this. That's not afraid to figure it out. What do you know about the New York Madam that had the black book of all those?
With Elliot Spitzer?
I guess, yes. Sounds right.
New York Madam, I don't know much about her. I know she's living with Roger Stone. They have some kind of relationship there. And I know that was
the one. This is the one that she had no suicidal tendencies. She went on to Today's Show. She was definitely going to release this book tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. at the courthouse, and she didn't make it through the night.
Palfrey?
I don't know the name. I just know New York Madam.
Palfrey was the DC Madam.
Okay.
I have her phone records. I have Palfrey's phone records. She's the one that was found hung to death in her shed at her mother's house in Florida. But she was the DC Madam. And I have her phone records, man. And she's calling up the Vatican. She's got the Vatican consulates calling her up. And the Vatican, too, by the way, has a house very similar to Epstein's house right next door to him with the same bulletproof windows that he has. They're custom windows. And somehow there's a Vatican connection there. There's a lot of weird stuff with the Vatican.
It was a DC Madam, and she died in Florida.
Yeah, she hung herself. Yeah, what's that?
She was on the Today Show in New York, so I thought the murder happened in New York.
I don't know. I don't know if the DC Madam was on the Today Show in New York.
Okay. All right.
There's a lot of madams.
Yeah. Well,
you have to figure out which one, and you talk about that next time.
There's a Heidi Fleiss. There's a Heidi Fleiss girl too that's connected both to Charlie Sheen and to Epstein too. One of the Epstein girls I have on the list is a Heidi Fleiss girl.
Wow. Well, Heidi Fleiss, yeah, we know about her. Real quick, Bill Gates. Do you have any connections?
No, I got nothing on Bill Gates. I don't believe that story. Just from my experience in this, that his wife didn't know what was going on. I think she got to the PR people first in their divorce and said that's the reason for the divorce. I don't believe that's the reason. I think she just used that.
And you had a P. Diddy story because we're running out of time. Go ahead.
Well, real quick, P. Diddy, a friend of mine, NYPD, worked a P. Diddy party. He did security for a P. Diddy event. And the fellow who brokered that event, who wrangled up all the security for that event, is a fellow named Keith Schiller, who's Mr. Trump's head of security at Trump Tower for years and years and years, and then went to work in the White House. And also was involved in that failed Venezuelan coup that I've also done a bunch of shows about too, that I have connections to Rudy Giuliani's clients as well. And there's a great film that just came out called Men of War. Check that out by Jen Gacian, who's the daughter of the nightclub owner in New York who ran the Tunnel and the Limelight. Incredible filmmaker, and the film is really good, called Men of War by Jordan Goudreau, who ran that coup. And it seems like he was just like a patsy, man. It was like a big money-making operation. And this poor guy's facing 15 years now.
Oh goodness!
So you think he was all just set up?
Who? Oh, the coup guy?
Oh, I thought you meant P. Diddy.
No, P. Diddy, no. P. Diddy's not set up, but P. Diddy was using Trump's head of security to wrangle his NYPD security guards.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So do you think that was on the same level as Jeffrey Epstein? Was he CIA? Was he getting blackmail? There's a YouTube video of a fellow named Jonathan Oddi. Okay, now people should check this out. Jonathan Oddi. And in 2018 or 2019, Jonathan Oddi went to the Doral Golf Club in Miami.
and he starts shooting off this gun and putting up a flag or something in the lobby. And there's a video of him shooting his gun. He's shooting over his shoulder, and the floors are all waxed, and he's sliding around on the floors. So it winds up, he shoots himself in his legs a couple of times. So he's got this hospital gown on. Yeah, oh no, it is a great story. And then he says, I want to talk to the U.S. Secret Service. I want to be interviewed by the U.S. Secret Service. So there's a video of his interrogation by the U.S. Secret Service in 2019 in his hospital gown. And he starts talking about how he was a sex worker for P. Diddy. You know this story? Yeah. And he was all about Cassie. He was talking about Cassie before anybody knew about Cassie. The pink cocaine and all this stuff. So, and then when I was following, he got arrested. He's doing, I don't know what's going on with this guy now because there's no disposition to his case. He was a witness in the P. Diddy trial. And then, you know, he got some kind of a compensation for being a witness. And then P. Diddy's going to walk away from that thing, you know. That's a whole story there itself. But Jonathan Odie knew all this stuff, and then he received a settlement from P. Diddy as well, too. And I was predicting he was going to be a witness in this thing a long time ago, which turned out to be true. And now he's getting a reduction in his sentence for shooting at cops on video.
Wow.
And P. Diddy
Wow.
for nothing.
Wow. Wow. Dude, you are phenomenal.
Yeah.
This has been amazing. Thank you so much for doing this. We definitely have to have you back on.
Absolutely.
I have to re-listen like right away.
Yeah.
Tell everybody where they can find you. Obviously, check out your Patreon, especially for the free stuff, but check out your Patreon for all that. But what else? What else you got?
Well, Opperman Report. It's called Opperman, Opperman Report. And I'm on Spreaker and all the podcasts, Apple Plays and Spotify, all the podcast catchers. I'm on everything. Forget YouTube. YouTube has deleted my best content. All the good stuff is at Spreaker, and there's a chat room. You get an email. I play repeats every night of the week, and I always got exclusive stuff. If you're into like the octopus murders on Netflix, I have the fellow Bill Hamilton, who is the real guy at the center of that story. He hasn't done an interview in 45 years, and I have 3 hours with him exclusively. Stephen Hoffenberg, who was Epstein's partner and mentor. I got 15 hours with this guy, man, that nobody has, that you'll hear nowhere else. Jim Morrison's brother-in-law, who also worked for Larry Flint and all those hitmen and all that kind of stuff in that mix there, who seems to be a hitman himself. Anyway, I got 3 hours with this fella. Oh, yeah, man, I got 3 hours with him. A lot of good stuff there. Richard Lampert, who was the FBI director in charge of Anthrax. I have him. There's so much. Joe Exotic. I interviewed Joe Exotic from prison, and we become friends. You know, I got a lot of really good stuff. Barbara Pilling. Trump hit on her when she was 16 years old, and she talks about Trump's 17-year-old girlfriend, this Russian girl that Trump had a girlfriend 17 years old. There's so much. I got, oh man, all the Stormy Daniels stuff we didn't even get into, and Hunter Biden laptop. I got the full chain of custody on the Hunter Biden laptop. I interviewed everybody involved in that deal. There was a time I knew more about that laptop and more about the chain of custody on that laptop than Hunter Biden did. And I'm not kidding you, because Hunter Biden uses my theory of the case in his lawsuit against that clown, John Mark Isaacs, over there, the blind computer repair guy. So we took all those interviews that everybody firsthand involved, and you can find that story at my Patreon.
Golly, this is phenomenal.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say. You are amazing. A wealth of knowledge.
Yeah.
Well, try living this stuff. It's not fun when you have to live it. I can't.
I don't know.
Yeah, it might be a little scary.
Yeah. Scary.
Yeah.
Yeah. Be safe.
Yeah.
Take care of yourself. Stay on the basement floor.
Thank you.
Keep your holster tight. Get it ready. Get it good just in case. God bless you. Thank you. Stay safe. I think the only thing we have left to say is see you next week. Check us out online at wesisley.com and patreon.com/Wes_Isley for behind-the-scenes videos, blooper videos, never-before-seen footage, discounts on merchandise, magic trick tutorials, and more. That's Wes Iseli, spelled WESISELI.